Another year of Virginia football and another installment of the McCue Report as we start things off here in 2017. I am Dave Koehn, Director of Broadcasting and Voice of the Cavaliers, alongside Jeff White, Director of News Content for VirginiaSports.com. Glad to have you with us along for the ride. And Jeff, we get a week earlier start time for this thing this season because of some rule changes, and certainly in year two under Bronco Mendenhall, I think that is a good thing. But this team is a different team than the one we saw last year in a lot of ways, even if for no other reason, approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely striking how much further along the team is in what it does in practice, you know, at this time in training camp compared to last year. I mean, they were still, at this time last year, a lot of time was being devoted to learning how to prepare, learning how to warm up, what they call will development. There's a lot more football being played now. Even though they're not yet in full pads, they're still playing football.
So this year we're seeing more game action, and I think that is a good sign. Obviously, it means that these guys have a better feel for what they're doing, the fact that they can execute it. Let's start on the offensive side of things. Two key additions, John Montellis and Brandon Pertile, two guys that come in, they transfer in from another school. It's interesting, in talking with the coaches, you get the sense that already, just a week into this thing, those guys are making a difference.
You know, they've been in winning football programs. I think they bring that element to the team. I mean, neither of them has played a lot of football, so it'll be interesting to see what they actually do on the field. But I think in terms of character and leadership, they really fit in well, and they really add a veteran element to a group that doesn't have a lot of experience and a lot of depth. I saw you after practice today, you were talking to Coach 2J. What does he have to say about the progress of the group to this point?
Well, I think when it starts with personnel, I think that he feels more comfortable about the personnel that he's got with this team this season than he did going in a year ago. He's got more numbers, he's got a little more experience obviously in the system as well, but you feel like in some ways there could be some momentum you gain even though you're playing with different personnel.
You know, and they've got a guy behind them who looks like a different player in Kurt Benkert. He looks different physically. He's got a command of the offense, a command of the system that he didn't have at this time last year. On August 3rd last year, he was newly married, newly arrived in Charlottesville, recovering from an ACL, had not played a lot of college football. You know, a year later, he's got 11 starts under his belt, I think, 10 starts. He looks like a different guy. He's dropped a bunch of weight. He looks more athletic. He looks more confident.
You go from 10.5% body fat to 7.5% body fat. It's going to make a difference. And also, he said that he's looking forward to playing healthy this year. You mentioned some of the injuries. He looks like a different quarterback so far. But again, guys up front got to keep him on his feet. Let's talk about the guys on the other side of things trying to do just the opposite. When you look at that defense returns so many pieces. I think in the secondary, it's hard to not be excited about what you see there with all the personnel back. But then you go forward in perhaps a little bit less certainty with each grade you go up. With the linebackers, you lose 4 players to transfer also, but Malcolm Cook is back in the mix, and that makes for a little bit more of an explosive athletic linebacking core on the outside. I know you did a story this week about that defensive line in the front 3 or 4, as they may even go at times. But what was your biggest takeaway when you talked to Eli Hanback and some of those guys that are trying to fit into that mold of the nose tackle, if you want to call it that?
You know, my biggest impression of the defense as a whole right now is that it has a very solid, very talented first 11. There's an experiment going on now, and I think to this point it would be considered successful, moving Eli Hanback from defensive end, where he started last year as a redshirt freshman, to nose tackle to replace Dante Wilkins. He's got a different body type than Dante. He's taller. I mean, he played in last year, but I think he's a very capable football player, and I think the coaches have confidence in him. Taking his spot at end is Juwan Moy, who played sparingly last year as a true freshman. He's a very strong physical player. He just hasn't really done it in a game. At the other end is Andrew Brown, who, if he's healthy, you know, we've seen can really wreak a lot of havoc, particularly as a pass rusher. So I think there are questions about the depth on the line and also at linebacker, but I think the first group across the board on the defense looks really promising.
I think the other component to this is you're looking for versatility, and that means not necessarily playing just nose tackle. As we said, it may be a little bit more of a hybrid look this year, and in some ways, if it's pulled off effectively, that can be a strength in and of its own right, because defenses, or I should say offenses, not quite ready for what they're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Mendenhall has said several times that, you know, he's not going to try to make something work if he doesn't have the pieces for it. So his preferred defense is the 3-4. You know, he'd like to have a dominant nose tackle. If he doesn't have that guy, he will try to scheme around it. You know, typically with the college game with so much passing, you're in the base defense on first down, maybe on second down, but almost always on third down, you're in some kind of sub package like a nickel defense. So I think there are enough pieces that Coach Mendenhall can get creative on defense, you know, with that front seven or front six.
It's early in training camp, and that means a lot of moving pieces. We'll try to keep on top of as many as we can throughout this fall camp. We'll be breaking in with you a number of times the rest of the way. By the way, your first chance to see this team as a fan, it will be August the 12th on Saturday. Come out to meet the team day that evening. You'll also have a chance for the movie night at Scott Stadium. Should be a great evening. And then, of course, Paint the Town Orange Day, your favorite day of the year, every year, September 1st. The night before. I know, he's the biggest fan. He's all, you full body paint this year?
Absolutely.
Jeff White, the Director of News Content and a rabid UVA fan. All right, we're glad you could join us. We'll be seeing you again here next week. Thanks for joining us for this installment of the McCue Report.